Ukrainian troops have recaptured Hostomel Airfield in the northwest suburbs of Kyiv, a presidential advisor has told the Reuters news agency.
Here's a summary of the article.
BA's owner IAG has said it is now avoiding Russian airspace following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Vladimir Putin has said one of his aims for his invasion is to denazify Ukraine, using the threat of the Nazi movement as justification for going in. It could drag Moscow into a protracted guerrilla war in Ukraine, triggering discontent in Russia as the number of Russian soldiers killed and wounded grows, along with the financial cost of the mission. This is unlikely, but it is much harder to attack than to defend, meaning that if Ukraine's armed forces can hold out against the Russian invaders, then they have a chance of beating them back, or at least ensuring that a Russian victory comes at the highest possible price in terms of soldiers lost. Newspapers have reacted this morning to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, many featuring the image of the school teacher who survived shelling in eastern Ukraine. Ms. Kirillo appeared on a number of front pages this morning, as the world wakes up to a second day of conflict in Ukraine. Putin has been set on Ukraine invasion for over a year, says Wallace.
This post received a score of 110,000, with an upvote ratio of 94%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
From Ukraine's Ministry of Defense. The fighting is still ongoing at the top of the hour.
So sounds like Ukraine has taken the site, but they're still fighting on the periphery. This kind of attack relies heavily on the ability to use the airfield to resupply. I suspect that the Russians threw everything they had at holding that airport, and the fact that they couldn't means that unit is probably on borrowed time and will surrender soon.
They've been out there for a while. Ammo can't last that long.
I really hope you are right. However, in WW2 the British held Arnhem Bridge for 8 days during Operation Market Garden without resupply against heavy tanks, artillery and waves of infantry. So I wouldn't necessarily count on it.
While I agree we shouldn't immediately assume that the Ukrainians will quickly take it back, especially with Russian air power, the British had the advantage in that they only had to control one major choke point. The Russians need to hold a perimeter large enough to protect landing aircraft. It's much harder to mitigate the difference in numbers. And manpads are super effective against transport aircraft.
They're effective against any low and slow flying aircraft, which is any aircraft coming in for a landing.
Hence, Sarajevo landing, too. Those big boys in. I've been in C-17, C-5. I'm not a plane guy, and C-130 doing combat landings into BIAP. The rapid gain and loss of altitude is one thing. The way they slam into the ground at speed made my asshole pucker every time. The suspension and wheels on those things are insane.
There's a couple different ways to do the approach for the landing, and the high-altitude fast drop is called a tactical descent that goes from high altitude to landing very fast. They're both based around less exposure time to get a shot. Really fun when everything goes -G for a second. Even with these tactics, it'll be extremely difficult to land any amount of large aircraft at a heavily contested airfield.
Key point, that without this airfield Russia can't quickly resupply forces near Kyiv, as they need to push 40 miles from border. This is important for keeping Kyiv safe. Honestly, from recent info, Russian have achieved moderate success only in south. But from my understanding their push from Crimea was also halted, which is important to cover forces that fighting with DPR, LPR who achieved literally nothing today in their attempts to break through.
I would love to hope that the Ukrainians are able to put up a much fiercer resistance than expected, and that Russian morale is far lower than predicted, that Russia might be forced to a stalemate.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.